guys, this is of course the Organic Guy, and welcome to Organic Adventures Podcast, where we are all about ensuring that you experience that organic magic. So this particular episode is proudly sponsored by Think Organic Kenya, who pride themselves as being the home of organic products. So if you are the kind of guy who's been looking for a convenient way to have organic products, well, Think Organic is here for you. And one way they're doing this is through their website. That's thinkorganic.co.ke, whereby you can be able to visit that particular website and indulge in your shopping, or alternatively you can download the app from Google Play or App Store, and you can have your shopping, and they will conveniently have those particular products delivered to you. So make sure you guys to check them out, and why not do some organic shopping. So in this particular episode, we had a really vivid and candid conversation with the one and only Dr. Peter Mokaya, who is also known as Dr. Organic, who is the founder and CEO of Organic Consumers Alliance, whereby he shared with us his personal story, very interesting story. He is actually a public health physician, but he converted to being an organic doctor. We talk or that story on how he actually came about to being now an organic doctor, and of course we talk a lot of things from how organic actually contributes to achieving the SDGs, and how organic can really help the Kenyan government in achieving its Big Four. So it's a very interesting conversation. It's a conversation that has a lot of knowledge, has a lot of wisdom that I'm sure you will be able to apply on your day-to-day activities. So make sure you stick till the end of this particular conversation, and this is how it went down. Well, thank you very much, sir, for having us at your offices.
Most appreciated.
It's a pleasure. Yeah, so this is one of the very interesting conversations we've been willing to have. And just to give an overview to the viewers who are listening for the first time, you can just tell them who you are and what you're all about.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to say who we are, what we do, and why we do what we do. As I said, my name is Dr. Peter Mokaya. Some people call me Dr. Organic, and there's perhaps a good reason behind that. The CEO of Organic Consumers Alliance. Organic Consumers Alliance, as you correctly say, is about all things organic foods, all things organic lifestyle, all things about the philosophy of organic. And many people are a little disturbed about what is this thing about organic. Firstly, let me just say that I come from a background of healthcare. I'm a physician. I'm a public health physician. Been in this field for the last 3 decades. Yes, believe it or not, 3 decades plus. And I'm still about 25 years young.
Okay.
That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Thank you, as I said again, for the opportunity to share. I oftentimes find it difficult to know what to say and what not to say.
Okay.
But in the particular case, let's just talk about the generalities, the broad issues.
Yeah.
Having said who I am and what my name is, perhaps the thing I would like to share with the audience is what is this thing people call organic, or some people, because of the accents, call organic. As in, what's the difference between these foods that are organic and foods that are not? The key differentiating factor for the general audience is that these are foods that are grown without using agrochemical synthetic products.
Yeah.
They're usually grown without these agrochemical substances, which don't only poison the soil, but that also are externally sourced. They're expensive, they're unaffordable. And from an organic point of view, the residues are being implicated to cause problems that are not only associated with the health of the soil, but importantly for me as a physician, are associated with the interfering with the health of human beings.
It's interesting you mentioned about being a health physician, a public health physician,
Right.
and also you mentioned about you were at the John Hopkins University in the US.
Yes.
So for me, I see those as lucrative opportunities. When I used to grow up, being a doctor was a big deal.
Yes.
So what was some of the things that made you switch your profession from being in the medical field to actually wanting to create awareness as to why people should eat organic?
Yes. Firstly, as a physician who has also involved himself in research, I've worked among my other institutions. I've worked with the Kenya Medical Research Institute. I have been involved in research at an advanced level at John Hopkins University, which is the premier school of public health, probably the most famous, most reputable school of public health globally. And some of the issues that came out in this journey were the need to interrogate how we can not only treat disease, but also how we can prevent disease. And in the course of that journey, about 10 years ago, I asked myself these deep questions: how do we contribute to make a difference to people's well-being? We can do that through intervening at the clinic where we treat people who are sick, or we can also intervene by making sure that people are healthy, by providing health care and make sure you maintain health as opposed to taking care of those who are sick and actually managing sick care. And as we all know, as the public knows, prevention is better than cure. Yes. And then specifically people ask me, "Oh doc, why are you doing this stuff and in the clinic?" And I told them, in 431 BC, there's the father of modern medicine. His name was Hippocrates. In 431 BC, he very famously said, "Let food be your medicine." And it's along those lines that around about 10 years ago, looking at the evidence of research, that I thought that I should dedicate the rest of my life and time teaching people and creating awareness on why they need to consume food that is safe, that is healthy, that is nutrient rich, and that they ensure that they stay healthy, as opposed to being in the clinic where we wait for them to be sick and then we give them medicines to try and cure them from disease.
Okay. We now do know that your passion, where your passion came from. So, and you've been doing this work for a while.
Yes.
So what will you can give us a little bit of how OCA came about and what OCA is all about.
OCA as a concept was in my mind more than 15 years ago, but as an organization about 8 years ago. I wanted to proactively and deliberately move, as I said, from intervening as a public health physician from doing the clinic stuff. So moved out of the clinic, as it were, into the field, into the masses, and said, well, to be able to set up an institute like that, we needed to put in place an organization that specifically advocates for creating awareness among consumers on the need to consume food, not just as food as a nutrient, but also as a medicine, as part of that continuum of care that involves preventive care, curative care, rehabilitative care, to be able to, in a small way, create a platform, both online and on surface, where I interact with different stakeholders, starting with farmers who plant the food, the value chain people who transport, who bag the food, and eventually, of course, consumers, to create evidence-based awareness on the reason why we should consume what we now call organic food as opposed to conventional food, which is often grown with these residues of toxic agrochemicals.
Yeah, exactly.
So that informed about 8-10 years ago the creation as a small entity of what now is growing to become a respected national, regional, and global entity that focuses on creating awareness among different stakeholders. So I say especially focus on consumers, but also using this evidence to advocate with policymakers to ensure that we anchor organic food consumption and production on policy frameworks.
Yeah. I'm a person who just heard about why people should eat organic, and there's a whole fuss about it, as the importance of we should eat organic.
Right.
So why should I start to care as to why I should eat organic?
Firstly, for lack of a better word, these foods are not grown with external synthetic chemicals. for lack of a better word, a lay person, you would probably refer them to the foods that your grandmothers and grandfathers eat. That food was organic.
Yes.
Why? Because it was grown naturally, using locally available materials. It didn't have any contamination from these agrochemicals. It was grown within the context of nature in an environment that was harmonious, that was enriching the soil. It ensured the soil nutrients came into the food, and that when you consume this food, it ensured that you were able to actually, without any effort, maintain your health status. This for somebody who's probably new to organic, I'll say if you don't want to use the word organic for those who are within Kenya and the East African region, you could use the word kienyeji. For example, why it's preferred to eat kienyeji chicken or kienyeji eggs, and I think most people intuitively can relate to that. And as you may know very well, people without anybody creating awareness, they know that kienyeji eggs, aka organic eggs, are more nutritious and even taste better than the modern broiler chicken kind of egg. So that's really what I will start with. Taste is a factor. Access is a factor, and of course, people then will know that this is food that I need to consume because it's healthy, it's tasty, and it's available and affordable.
Thank you. It's important also you mentioned about that. So the other day we were doing our second episode. We were asking people as to why they actually eat organic, and one of the excuses, the most excuse that people gave was that there is lack of availability of organic products. So do you think that is a legit question or excuse that one should have, or is just people being lazy and giving out excuses?
No, generally it's true, because first of all, if you don't know what you're looking for, you may not find it. And this is why the first thing that we do is to create awareness on what foods do we define as organic. Once you know what they are and what their value is to your health, then you may know where to find them. Many people consume organic foods without realizing they're organic foods. Perhaps what I should do, if you allow me quickly, is to define what foods are just beyond the agrochemicals. What foods are defined as organic? Organic is a philosophy, is a system of growing, producing, sharing, and consuming food that is in harmony with nature, in the sense that these foods are not just tasty and healthy, because health is a component of the 4 principles of organic, but the 3 other components of an organic philosophy, that these foods are ecologically friendly. They're grown in a manner that doesn't betray the soul of ecology. They are organically produced in the context of ecologically. Number 2, they are shared or produced in the context where there is fairness to the animals, the plants, and the ecosystem, and that these are also grown in an environment that is caring and that shows love. So in summary, the organic philosophy embraces 4 principles: ecology, fairness, caring, and of course health. So once you explain to them, then they understand that they have by default been consuming organic foods without realizing. But there's now a system that allows organic food to be classified, in the sense that you need to find a way where you can certify and confirm that it's organic, and that process is made it difficult for most people to access what one would refer to as organic food. So I agree, there is a challenge in terms of accessing what organic foods are available. But again, with more concerted efforts, with involvement of government, people who produce food, and the farmers, we can increase the access and the affordability of these organic foods, which were there intrinsically before 50 years ago when we started using agrochemicals, and we grew food organically before we introduced the modern farming system, so to say.
So challenging things about this journey of creating awareness and letting people know as to why they should eat organic.
Many challenges, like everything else. The first challenge is correctly saying the people thought that this is a foreign idea that came from abroad, and the first thing you have to do is to kind of shift people's thinking that organic was actually the food that our grandparents ate. These last 2 generations, the generation of my father and myself and my children, who think that organic is a trendy for the rich, a kind of niche food where those rich people in Karen and in those suburban areas can afford, because it's pricey. Now, this is my biggest challenge, that we need to tell the people, know the masses, that You can actually grow organic food and consume it. It's cheaper, it's healthier, it's more accessible. So that's the other challenge of how do we access the masses to reorient their thinking that they can actually grow organic food and access it and sell the surplus to others and make an income from it. Yeah, we have our challenges, of course, also engaging government, because as you probably know, you can do your little things on the ground, but unless those activities are anchored on policy, you may not go very far. So we go right now having a challenge of linking up with government through the Ministry of Agriculture, to the Ministry of Environment, and of course to the Ministry of Health, to see how we can work with them at policy level, using evidence to gradually shift the thinking from conventional foods to foods that embrace what we want to define as organic foods. And we believe are cheaper. So that's those accessing policymakers, making sure the masses are aware is the biggest space that we think Organic Consumers Alliance is trying to reach. And we're doing that using mass media, print media, audiovisual. We have a strong internet presence, as you probably are aware. The younger people don't want to read long speeches. They want short messages with pictures and short messages that actually explain why this is kind of food that they would be interested in consuming.
Okay. So I think we'll take a break, and we'll be right immediately after the break. Well, welcome back to Organic Adventures. We, of course, are one-on-one with Dr. Peter Mokaya, also known as Dr. Organic, and we are discussing all things organic. Before the break, we were talking about awareness and some of the challenges that you've been had when creating awareness.
Right.
And one thing for sure that doesn't meet awareness is the rise of NCDs, the non-communicable diseases.
Right.
So what do you think, is there a critical role that organic foods can play in terms of minimizing the rise of the non-communicable diseases?
Indeed, and I appreciate you asking that question. There is clearly a definite role that organic foods can play in reducing or mitigating the rising incidences and prevalence of chronic diseases that include cancer, diabetes, blood pressure, and others. And this month happens to be the month of October, is globally, internationally known as the Cancer Awareness Month. So I appreciate your question because it's relevant. From a preventive perspective, two things that an individual can do to reduce the incidence or risk of getting into these chronic diseases is through consuming the right diet and exercise. Oftentimes, 80% of that mitigation comes from eating the right food, and 20% more or less from exercising. So I would say that indeed organic food sits pretty on the table as one of those things that one can do, or foods one can consume to reduce the risk of getting these chronic diseases, including cancer. Not just for prevention purposes, but even as part of the treatment package. If one consumes food that's free from chemical residues that are toxic, one can actually mitigate the risk of cancer. And if one is already infected, it can also reduce, be part of the treatment package towards the journey of healing or recovering or getting a remission from cancer.
Another hot topic right now, another hot issue that is going on is the issue of the Big Four. You know, the Kenyan government has laid out its plan for the next 5 years on what it intends to achieve. We are talking about food security, we are talking about universal healthcare, we are talking about manufacturing, and also affordable housing. So those are big measures the government has dedicated itself in doing. Do you see organic playing a role in terms of trying to achieve the Big Four for the government that has set?
Indeed, in my view, the Big Four is just one huge, big agenda that's anchored on food security. That's, in my view, the biggest, the strongest, and the broadest foundation of achieving the Big Four. And food security, what is food security? If you were to go by the FAO definition of 2012, this is when all people have access to adequate amounts of food that meets their personal preferences, that is safe, nutritious, and enables them to actively engage in the daily activities for the achievement of the highest quality health. And in my view, that for me is what brings organic foods as a key contributor or solution to achieving the Big Four agenda. Because unless food is safe, you cannot achieve food security. And as we said earlier on in the previous episode, organic food ensures that you're consuming food that is safe and free from toxic agrochemical residues that oftentimes have been linked with these chronic diseases that include cancer, diabetes, blood pressure, and so on. So, in summary, you are not likely to achieve the Big Four agenda, especially the pillar of food security, which links up with the universal health coverage, unless people are consuming safe food as part of the definition of food security.
Yeah, with this huge promise that organic has in terms of achieving the Big Four that the government has set, what do you think the government can contribute in terms of trying to make, organic as being the normal thing in the recent community that we have? Is there specific strategies or specific ways that you see the government can engage itself in trying to promote organic?
Yes, indeed. I'm glad to mention that the government has been working with the government for the last few years, and we now, for example, in the context of policy, have an organic subsector policy that is at the level of cabinet for approval. We appreciate that. We work with the government. The government is responsive. There's a bigger agenda of agroecological agriculture and sustainable food systems that anchors itself on the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. So government is with us. They understand. We also understand that we cannot shift overnight from the current industrial conventional food systems into organic, our agroecological food system, but there is a transition that we are seeing, and we appreciate that government is on board. We're working with them. It's a little bit of a slow process. Government shifts policy gradually, but I want to say that government is cognizant of the role of organic and agroecologically produced foods. So there is a sense in which we are upbeat. Not only that, we are also comfortable that this framework incorporates sustainable agriculture. The clear link with providing Kenyan citizens with safe food. Yeah, because that safe food does not only give them nutrients to keep them alive and healthy, but also it's a way of mitigating some of these chronic conditions that include cancer, diabetes, and so on. At the regional level, we are also anchored on the CADA framework at the African level, the African Union, NEPAD, CADDP framework that encourages consuming agroecological grown food that is available locally, that brings in nutrients and allows small-scale farmers to be able to earn a livelihood and to do farming sustainably. At a higher level, the UN level, we have the Sustainable Development Goals, 17 of them. They are also sitting pretty and anchoring the whole idea of consuming food that's healthy to achieve the SDG objective number 3 on health and wellness, and of course number 2 to reduce hunger, and number 1 to mitigate poverty. And then of course from the climate perspective, when you practice organic farming or agroecological farming, you capture carbon from the atmosphere, keep it in the soil, and reduce global warming, and therefore be good for the climate. So in summary, you normally say organic food is not just good for human health, it's also good for the health of the environment and also good for the health of the soil. So it's a triple win when you go organic.
Yeah, so it's also interesting you've actually mentioned about the SDGs. So I think it's fair we give an elaborate view on what organic can contribute to ensuring the achievement of the SDGs.
Yes.
You have obviously mentioned an overview of what organic can do. Can we sort of, give us now, try to explain us on specific roles that organic can do to make sure that SDGs become a reality?
Yes, thank you for asking that question. From where I sit, and I've been in this now for almost a decade, there hasn't been a better time for organic and agroecological food systems, both from the production perspective and from the consumption system. Before, things were not very clear, but now it's becoming apparent and clear that part of the solution of achieving the 17 SDGs is actually going organic in terms of production and in terms of consumption. Why? Because when you go organic, you improve health and health outcomes. And number 2, you improve soil health. Number 3, you improve you mitigate climate change because you are able to reduce the carbon that is in the atmosphere, which causes warming, capture it in the soil, and you're able to mitigate climate change.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then talking about health, we have obviously talked about health. We have talked about ending hunger.
Yes.
And climate.
Yes.
Can you sort of give us that overview, the connection between having a good climate and all the way to actually achieving the health of the universe in general? The connection that organic can make up across all those points.
Beautiful. As I said earlier on, and to put it a bit using different words, when you grow food organically with the intention of people consuming it, the food that is healthy and people's health improves, the process of growing organic food involves using composting, green manures, and the waste products of animals, usually what you call farmyard manure, also green manure, which is the dead leaves and other green materials that you generate what you call green manure. The process of doing that requires involves capturing carbon from the atmosphere, getting it to the soil, and in the process you enrich the soil while capturing carbon from a process known as carbon sequestration. That process directly reduces global warming and therefore mitigates climate change. In fact, the evidence shows that more than direct and indirect effects of global warming are from agricultural activities. The current agricultural activities use fossil fuels, use external fertilizers and agrochemicals that create more carbon into the atmosphere. Organic agriculture or agroecological agriculture does the opposite. It reduces use of these fossil fuels, it uses local materials, composting, green manure, and allows for the enrichment of the soil, while at the same time ensuring that nutrients are captured in the soil to generate what's healthy food, and that's what we call organic foods. So it's a triple win, both for the health of humanity, as I said, the health of the soil, and most importantly and lately, for the health of the climate. So the SDGs summarize, they say clearly that the SDGs are for people, for planet, and for profits. In that order.
I also think that that's a critical point. You have obviously been doing this sense of creating awareness for a while now. What gives that sense of hope that we are heading in the right direction? Is there signs you're seeing that gives you that hope? We're headed in the right direction. It's a matter of time before we see organic doing its thing.
Thank you for asking that question. If you asked me that question 10 years ago or 5 years ago, I'd have been pessimistic. But what drives us is passion, is purpose, is persistence, and evidence. As we sit right now, we're sitting pretty because the evidence shows that the whole world has suddenly realized that we cannot live sustainably unless we shift from the current conventional external inputs-based ways of producing food and consuming food to more sustainable approaches that use local materials that are available and accessible and affordable to farmers, oftentimes small-scale farmers, who, as I'm sure you know, feed 80% of the world. We see now evidence locally and regionally and globally of people shifting into organic farming. It's a good space to be in at this point in time, to be in the organic space or the agroecological space, because in many ways all frameworks from the global frameworks at the UN level, the United Nations framework on Convention on Climate Change, the UN framework of SDGs, at the regional level, CADAP, at the national level, the Big Four agenda, in the context of Kenya. All these frameworks are aligned in such a manner that organic foods are a key contributor to solving or a solution to those frameworks, both in the context of food security, in the context of mitigating NCDs, chronic conditions like cancers and diabetes, and of course in the context of mitigating climate change, from the context of sequestrating carbon and ensuring that we're practicing agriculture that's friendly to the small-scale farmer and also friendly to the climate.
We obviously see the benefits of organic, but from your context, do you see that a time will come when everyone will be consuming organic foods at their pleasure?
Thank you for asking that question. Within the context of our vision, given where we've come from and where we are right now, That is the desired future. That is the utopia that we envision.
Yeah.
That is the world that we look forward to. Not necessarily in our generation, but I do believe that that's possible, and there is evidence that we move in that direction. For example, recently we traveled to India, and there's a state that is the size of Moranga County and Nairobi County combined, Sikkim, the north of India, where they're practicing 100% third-party certified organic. Yeah, in Brazil, about 35% of their food production is now organic and agroecological. Yeah, in Denmark, it's going organic. I mean, they right now at almost 60% organic food production as a nation. Their policy frameworks are anchored on that. And many other examples in Europe and in Africa. There is movements in Ghana. Ghana currently subsidizing production of organic composting and manures, together with other seed production systems. And many other components, including Kenya. So I'm an optimist. So I believe that there is going to be a time when 100% of food production and consumption is going to be agroecologically organic, because that's what the UN wants to achieve as well, through the framework of let's not leave anyone behind. Let's produce this for people, for planet, and of course for sustainable profits. We understand that we are in the context of an economic system. So organic can produce money, can make money sustainably, and we are working with other partners in energy. We're moving towards sustainable energy, green energy, using wind, using solar, using hydro, and using geothermal. So from a socio-economic and political point of view, I think the cosmos and the energies around the UN framework, regional frameworks, are all conspiring towards a sustainable art. Because eventually we all want to live healthy, we want to live in a balanced manner, we want to live in an environment whereby we protect not just our own health and make money, but also sustain the capacity of the earth to carry us as we go into the future. Yes, so there's optimism, there is hope, and there is evidence that that's happening. Slowly, of course, but clearly there are low-hanging fruits that we can see from locally, nationally, regionally, and globally.
So the future looks good. We are seeing great signs that we are in the right direction in terms of the UN, the government are actually putting their efforts into making sure that people are aware of organic. From your perspective as Organic Consumers Alliance, do you think there is a magic switch that you actually need for everyone to become aware about organic? If there was a magic, a switch that you will need in terms of making everyone become aware on organic?
Yes. My view would be that while there may not be a magic switch, one of the avenues that we're using to leverage for creating awareness on the value and the benefits of organic, and broadly speaking agroecological foods, is social media, digital media, the internet. There is a growing awareness, especially among the youth, who are more than 70 to 80% of the global population. That for me is the nearest thing to a magic switch. Even this interview we are conducting here right now, once we're able to leverage this on different social media platforms, once young people especially understand that this is good for those three components, it's good for the planet, good for the soil, good for human health, and good for the overall health of the ecosystem. That for me is an ongoing light bulb that may not necessarily be a magic switch, but is as close to a magic switch as it can be, by creating awareness that organic is not just a small niche issue, but it's an issue, is a philosophy that embraces the sustenance and the survival of the human ecosystem going forward, from all aspects, including economic point of view.
Right now, obviously, you've been advocating for organic, and in terms of consumer organic, for about the last 8 years. So, I'd like to see your bigger picture, your vision. At what time do you think that will come that will actually be satisfied in terms of what you've done to the organic movement? Is there a grand picture that you can paint for us that gives us hope, in the coming days about organic?
Yes, thank you. From where I sit, the last 8 years, about a decade now, has been tough. We've been in the trenches. Mostly what we'll be doing is gathering the evidence. People haven't seen us, but in the last few years, we've come out of the foundation. We are coming to surface. We now have a huge internet presence from the evidence we've been accumulating. Like you're building a house, you set a foundation, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
But I can tell you without fear of contradiction that we are at a position now where we believe that, as they say, we are about to upgrade to the next level, where we want to partner now with all like-minded persons from environment, from soil health, from agriculture, from diseases mitigation in health. There is a whole global partnership, and we're leveraging on the recently launched Sustainable Development Goals. So for me, while we may not see this 100% realization of organic food being consumed globally within our lifetimes, we believe that we are now at a level whereby we are partnering with younger people, with other different interested, like-minded entities, like the Organic Adventures, of course, where we're having this interview, who, once we suck them into this space, then we'll have what people describe as a critical mass of like-minded people. Once that happens, and I can tell you for sure, then it'll be boom. People then will realize that this is the preferred way forward, and the rest will just flow. Because it's almost instinctively the right thing to do without even collecting data. The survival of the human race within the context of current pollution and contaminated environment, that we shift our activities, our thinking, our energies, and the way of doing things to thinking about others and less about ourselves. Because it's one world. That's why the SDGs are packaged just for people, for planet, and for profits. And I'll just add for sustainable profits, leaving no one behind.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it was a pleasure having you. Thank you very much for creating time to share your knowledge and your experiences.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think we are in the right direction after this conversation. We are looking with hope and seeing that things will get better.
Beautiful. I believe in that too. Go out there, spread the word. Eat organic. Let's cook organic. Let's not cook the planet. That's my last words.
Well, what an adventure, ladies and gentlemen. So, as I promised you, this was one of those particular podcasts that was on fire. There was a lot of knowledge and wisdom and insights from this particular podcast, and I was right when I promised you in the beginning that there is going to be a lot of value from this particular podcast. So we hope you enjoyed this particular podcast very, very much, and make sure to share it with your friends, with the people close to you, and also on your social media platforms, so that other people can also be able to have this particular wisdom with them. So thank you very much, guys, for joining us in this particular podcast, and until the next one, ladies and gentlemen, remember to be organic.